told that I am not a nice, inclusive person for saying that the law needs to be able to recognize sex. And not just me, but all the women who don't believe that human beings can change sex. We've even been accused of perpetuating genocide. It's funny because 5 years ago, I first started seeing lesbians were being publicly shamed, sexually harassed, and demonized by straight men calling themselves lesbians. These men also tended to call themselves progressives, feminists, and they keep telling us, they were telling us then and they keep telling us now that they are absolutely indispensable to the women's movement and we cannot do without them. Everyone can always see this behavior and they always get away with it. I didn't think, and I still don't, that sexually harassing lesbians is a good way to be inclusive. So I objected. It turns out it's a firing offense on today's left to complain about men sexually harassing lesbians if that man says he feels like he's a lesbian. That harassment still goes on, and if anything, it has gotten worse. Women share shocking screenshots with me from lesbian dating apps, which are now just simply packed wall to wall with men. These men have even started getting women's profiles suspended for saying no to them and refusing to recognize their gender and validate their feelings. Across social media, women's accounts and access to public conversation is under permanent, constant surveillance for offenses against men claiming to be women, with catastrophic penalties for refusing to lie for them to spare their feelings. Is that nice behavior? What about my feelings? What about the feelings of all the women who have lost all access to public conversation on social media? I saw that President Obama made several moves to end single-sex facilities for women and girls through executive branch orders and funding threats. His administration and now the entire Democratic Congressional Caucus made a point of insisting on an end to women's rights to bodily privacy from men whenever we are outside our homes. If a woman complains that a man has dropped his trousers in front of her at a job, the left will shout, "Me too," in solidarity, and he'll be canceled. If a woman complains because he drops his trousers in front of her in a gym locker, but he says he's a woman, they'll cancel her. Is that kind? Was it inclusive when the women who objected to that were fired for it? Women are still being fired if they dare to say anything against this. Anywhere on the left, some of us may be fired for the offense of appearing at this gathering today. None of the women at liberal organizations can say no to this agenda or their peers will destroy them. And that makes their consent to this, their support for it, as meaningful as a hostage statement. Last night, a woman wrote to me, a progressive reporter who is outspoken and not shy to hold unpopular opinions, to ask for a quote for this case. And after she got my reply, she said to me, she wrote, "I just met Amy as she prepares for tomorrow. She is a woman." And I asked her, "In what way is Stevens a woman?" And she said, and I quote, "It's not a matter of what I think, and I'm here for her too today, even though she probably really dislikes me." It is the right of all women to speak publicly and to be able to petition our government for the redress of our grievances and to be able to participate openly in the public sphere. I have seen numerous women banned from social media for pointing out that gender transition treatments leave children sterile for life at ages where they can't possibly consent to such permanent decisions. But a generation of quirky, stereotype-rejecting kids, many of whom would grow up to identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual, many of whom are autistic, are being sterilized as minors now. And the only crime that the left or social media companies seem to recognize in this is the crime of women objecting to the wholesale sterilization of vulnerable children. For that, we get accused of promoting genocide. There are doctors in the U.S. who will go to work today and oversee the chemical castration of little boys, who will put 14-year-old girls into menopause and give troubled young girls cosmetic mastectomies. And I object, and for that I'm considered dangerous. I've seen public calls for every type of harm against those of us who object to the end of women's sex-based rights, or who object to the sterilization of children. To the people who say this, the only meaningful type of violence is that I refuse to call a man she. Still others insist that it's violent of me to associate with conservatives, in spite of the fact that gender activists associate with lots of conservatives. And I have never seen anyone have a problem with that. It's almost like women who say no to these men are just going to be wrong no matter what we do. Sisters, when a man puts you under constant surveillance and retaliates whenever you say no and huffs about being indispensable, and he makes you lie to spare his feelings, and he always puts you in the wrong no matter what, that is not a partnership, it's abuse. Plan a way out before it gets worse. It will get worse. In closing, to echo my sisters in the UK, a man can never be a woman. A lesbian can never be male. My name is Natasha Chart from New York State. I will not be forced to lie. I will not submit.